Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the 2 Plus podcast. Today, we're going to have a look at a Bretonnian list that took out the Nova tournament in the US. Alex, welcome back. Good to have you here.
Hi, Paddy.
We've had a bit of a powwow about this list, and it's caused a bit of division online already. Most people would know the creator of the list. He's from the Bell of Lost Souls website, which publishes a lot of old world content.
We're here to defend him.
Yeah, pretty much. He's copped a lot of flack online, but to be honest, it's a pretty strong list. And this is what these tournaments are about.
Paddy, you and I are we're like this, that we're trying to balance having fun with Warhammer, but being competitive. And it's one of those games that sort of could be too competitive, trying to stay off things like Warhol because it's a little bit too abstract. Like, we believe the game has a narrative, a theme, is tactile, but also that it's a game and we're trying to find ways to win and play well and those sorts of things. And I think this list is a good example of someone who obviously loves Warhammer, loves it, and has driven a lot of early traffic towards the game and has kept it going with the prolific number of articles he's put out, and has just taken something that you and I and a couple of other people we play with probably think is the antidote if you're worried about dragons, and trying to do something about it rather than just whinging about them.
Yeah, and look, this tournament we'll go through. It had some pretty hefty comp to it, which I'm not a massive fan of in general. I don't think you are either, but it's Tio's discretion. So that kind of helps in some regards. We'll go through that in a bit, but let's just quickly fly through his list because there's a lot in it, but mainly a few things to talk about. So in characters, he has 987 points. He has a Baron with all the usuals, plus on a Royal Pegasus, has the Exile's Vow. He has 2 times Lucky Heirlooms and the Virtue of Heroism, which gives Killing Blow and Monster Slayer. He has another Baron on another Royal Pegasus with the Frontier Axe, which is Strength +2, AP -3, magical attacks, multiple wounds 2, requires 2 hands. And he has the Virtue of the Knightly Temper, which is the +D3 attacks, hatred everything, possibly on the charge, I think. He has a level 2 Damsel running battle magic. He has an Outcast Wizard level 3 on dark magic with the Ruby Ring of Ruin on a Warhorse. And he has a Paladin BSB with the Rampaging Banner and the Falcon Horn. Heading into core, he has 12 mounted Knights of the Realm, just with full command, 10 mounted Knights of the Realm, full command, and 12 Peasant Bowmen. Then he has 2 units of 5 Pegasus Knights, all both full command, one with the Banner of Shalons, which I think that is can't stand and shoot against it, or it's the Vanguard banner, which the other one has. But those are the 2 banners he has on those 2 units. And then in rare, he has 2 units of 10 Border Prince's Brigands, which are scouts, skirmishers. 1 unit has ambushes, but those guys don't really matter, in my opinion. Let's go back up to the top. To the
Shalons is you can't stand and shoot.
Yeah, okay. So the other banner is the Zealous Knight, which gives the unit Vanguard. So why don't we go back to the top, to the characters, because this is kind of where the list, as well as the Pegasus Knights, probably buckles down to. What stands out to you? Why are these characters so good?
Well, I guess we've all been talking about the virtue of heroism for a long time. So like, I've tried running Monster Slayer, Dragon Slaying Sword, and it's a big investment. It can be pretty limited. Having Killing Blow as well, and then being able to tack on all of the other magic items on top of that is just such a luxury. Like, it's, on one hand, you can go after these bigger things, and the Baron must have 4 attacks. The Duke, I think, has 5. So that's going to be reasonable chance of success. It'll be a pretty high weapon skill. But yeah, like, Killing Blow means you can run around after Dragon Ogres and other things, and chew them to bits if there just isn't, you're not playing someone who's just all in on, say, a dragon or something like that.
Yeah, I think the flexibility of Virtue of Heroism is what makes it so good. Obviously, there's 2 Killing Blow and Monster Slayer are good individually. Having them both and then being able to add even a lance at 4 points means that you still have the +2 strength, you still have the -2 AP, +1 armor bane.
It's what separates it from, say, like a Gorgon has no upgrades available and is ground-bound frenzy, so limited in that way. And then the Tomb Kings models that have access to both are also not as customizable. They're probably better than the Gorgon in my mind, but they're also just not as reliable. They're not going to hit as consistently as this. And there are other features I guess we'll talk about as we go through too that exaggerate that.
Yeah. I mean, if you just compare the virtue of heroism to the Dragon Slaying Sword, Dragon Slaying Sword is 10 points cheaper. You don't get Killing Blow, and you get no strength modifier, no AP modifier. So if they don't have a monster, my strength 4 Glade Lord just hits with
I've been there, Paddy.
Yeah.
Shoot up a few cannon crew. That's it.
Exactly. So obviously that guy's role is pretty clear. He's taking down the big bad guys. And if there's no big bad guys on Written Monsters, which was mentioned in these battle reports, he just wiped 3 demigryphs in one sweep because he rolled well. So that flexibility, and across the board, all these Royal Pegasuses with their fly 10 skirmish mobility makes them just fully versatile weapons.
That's it. The 360-degree charge arc is a big factor. It's a huge thing that they can see. There's a lot of maneuverability I don't think people are talking about, and it was touched on by the Dwellers Below podcast, where they just talked about some very technical stuff about dragons and flying back, how to avoid being charged. And some of that detail still coming out, or just the sort of rally march stuff we see where you can get out of the charge arc of big units really easily. I think the 360, the things that we think have 360 charge arcs are really big, and they're the way to sort of corner something really in the game.
Yeah, and so he's got another Baron who has the Frontier Axe and the Virtue of the Knightly Temper. So he hits like a truck also, but probably isn't going after the dragons. And the idea with this guy was he goes into that unit of vanguarding Pegasus Knights, probably with the BSB, I think is what the OP said. So turn 1, 7 Pegasus riding dudes vanguard up and basically pick their charge target with their range and flying. And then this guy just goes and cleaves through whatever he wants, basically.
Yeah, rerolling attacks is incredibly good. Like the whiffing happens so much more than you think. Rolling on a 3+, it's one of the reasons that like even Lord level characters are just not as reliable, and it's the ridden mount with its stomps that's, there's the combined profile. There's a lot going on, but the stomps are what tend to save me a lot of the time. I can't count how many times that like I've missed all my attacks with the 4 attack character sitting on top of something, being able to re-roll them. And strangely, the designers have priced in extra attacks at a really high rate. Like you have to pay a lot for them. And this guy getting 3 more plus, or up to 3 more, but re-rolling all of them on that first round of combat is just, it's huge because the strength is going to be high. There's AP, you're going to get wounds.
Yeah, and the other combo with this list, which isn't 100% of going off, but the Outcast Wizard running Dark Magic. No lore familiar, so can't pick his spells unless that's some random Exiles listing, which I'm not aware of. But when he gets Battle Lust, I think the spell is, which gives you Frenzy and Hatred all enemies on everyone in the unit, including the mounts, means that's like 25 attacks this unit, if they're all in base contact, of course. But pretty menacing little blob. The Paladin, though, interestingly, has another feature because the other dragon mitigating factor, which is probably one of the more reliable ones, I think, it's just you don't get to kill it, is the Falcon Horn. So that's on the Paladin, who's only leadership 8, but as part of the Exile's Vow, he gets Veteran, which means he can reroll leadership tests which Falcon Horn is a leadership test. So 2 chances at rolling an 8 inclusive and under. Pretty good chance that's going to work. So you've got probably, in my opinion, 2 of the better dragon mitigators in this one list.
Yeah, I think Falconhorn, I wish it was a generic item. In past editions, there was fly blocking things. I think flying, it's not just dragons. There's a lot of things going around that can fly, that cause a lot of headaches, and there's not a lot you can do about them. Like Swift Stride is already, I think, the ability in the game, and maybe vying for the other one that we'll talk about with Stubborn and Veteran. They're all very like high level abilities. But being able to block flying and the fact that you are relying on a lower leadership already, but you've got that reroll. So that's like for me, who's had to play cold ones recently and deal with the unreliability there. Not even going on leadership 8, if I could just get a reroll, like it would probably be worth it. And I think in this case, it's likely, I'm not sure what the maths is on an 8 on a reroll, but it's probably pretty good. Like you're looking at 2/3 of 2/3. So it seems to be like it'd be over 3/4 of the time it's going off. And then the flyer, I know dragons can move 6, but they're sort of stuck in place for the other guy to hit them.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't completely stop the dragon, but you can definitely play around it, particularly when half your list is either mounted or flying, like this one is. And that's where the Falcon Horn really swings, is when you run this. So that is 10, 11, 12, 13 Pegasus. So when the Falcon Horn goes off, everyone else's flying stops, and you have 13 dudes that can fly. It's a pretty big swing in your favor. So that's like the functionality of the big hitters of this list. Really, the Pegasus Knights in their own right are solid anyway, but they're carrying all these guys. One of them has Vanguard that gives everyone else Vanguard. According to FAQ, there's some discussion of whether that's actually true. But it seems like
Yeah,
it
I thought
is.
it was one of the examples they gave, actually. So I thought the fact actually refers to Vanguard. So when
Yes.
you're trying to
So
apply abilities, it specifically is dealing with a Vanguard, a unit with Vanguard without a character with Vanguard.
yeah, I think the reasoning. So if a unit has
This is a
Vanguard,
banner, not
yes.
a unit
So the
skill.
banner
Yeah.
takes effect when the battle starts, and after that time,
When
you've
you
got to
join the
put the
unit with the
character
magic.
in or something. Yeah. So the
Yeah,
banner gives the
I think
unit.
that's probably how it would work. In the
Yeah.
past, that's how things have worked. The ability of the banner affects anybody who's joined the unit. There's another clause in the rules about that. That if you're under a hex, for example, you've got to and move into the unit, you take on the hex negatives and the
Yeah.
enchantment positives. Yeah, so
Um,
I think it works.
yeah, definitely. I think it does too. The the Pegasus Knights, sure, we know what they do. What do you think of the core? So there's 22 in total mounted Knights of the Rome and 12 peasant bowmen, a unit of 12 and a unit of 10 of knights. What's their role?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you say, the stubborn ability, it's just such gravy. Like, if you had to tell me what are the 5 best abilities in the game, I would certainly have Swift Stride and Stubborn in there, and I would probably have Veteran, which we haven't seen a lot of in our games as much, but I think its general reroll ability is huge too. But Stubborn, just having that option to this army just feels like it can fix things in place for the Pegasus to hit. And Knights are not bad on their own. There's a lot more things that can kill Knights more easily than Pegasus Knights or characters in Pegasus Knight units. But I do think that it's gravy. I think that there's going to be long term. Like I do think this. A lot of people have theory hammered this. The close order podcast put Bretonnia at S plus in their tier in his Ed's tier list, and there wasn't a lot of detail in the podcast. But I imagine that people are starting to look at what does back up these characters who have incredible power after Peg Knights. So I was surprised to see 12 or so together and not just small blocks of 6 or the minimum, I think might be 5. So yeah, their role is pretty obvious, and he goes into it in the article a bit, but I don't know if that's the optimized version just yet. 2250 is a funky points level, but the stubborn is just extraordinary that you can get veteran and stubborn.
Speaking of funky, I mean, we'll leave the list there because the skirmishes really, I don't think have a role. They're just there. They
No.
can, they're fun, I suppose. But this tournament had some pretty hefty comp to it. So it was 2,500 points, legacy armies and
Oh,
archangels.
2,500.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was
2,500
trying to be
points.
2,500. Yeah.
2,500 points. I'm saying that right. 2,500. um, Legacy Archangels allowed, but no special characters. Rule of 3 in characters, core, and special. Max 2 of the same rare choice. Max 2 characters in a unit. Max 1 level 3 or level 4. Max 40% points on characters, so still keeping that 1,000 points limit that's in 2,000 points.
Mm.
Max 10 models wide for close order and open formations. No allies. Mounted characters
Ah.
have a max of 7 wounds. So this is the thing that is obviously in direct retaliation to the dragon meta, which, so if you're high off dragon, any dragon really, has 9 wounds in this tournament, it has 7, but you pay the same amount of points. So it just not mutes, doesn't kill it, but it definitely takes away a chunk, almost a third of what makes them so strong, which is the wounds and the armor saves, sure, but 9 wounds
And
compared to
it's the
7.
wards and the regen. Like, still, it
Yes,
seems like a lot of rules, a lot of effort. Like, it almost like, did the Linehammer thing ever become real?
I
This
don't
is where
think
I think
so.
it's actually the most real, and yet there's comp against it, and that's my. I don't want to get ranty, but it's a bit of a. There's a lot of comp there, and I don't know if
I
that's.
mean, so take a look at some of these other things. Enchanting Aura from Warriors of Chaos and Armor of Ages cannot be used with a character on a monster mount.
Yeah, that seems like trauma. Like the
Yeah,
organizers suffered trauma, like a
absolutely.
horrible experience, and said we're banning. And that's what I can't stand about comp is when people, and people are entitled to run whatever tournament they want and get who they can to play in it. But I do think that sometimes it turns into one person's crusade against
Yeah,
particular things, and then you end up sort of, are you putting barriers up towards people playing? Because I guess that's part of the theme of doing this podcast is that we want to take it to the dragons. And I know there have been comments recently from the designers of the game that were a bit probably almost pro-dragon and
yeah,
worried a few people, and the Warriors of Chaos book is sort of really like, if you're an anti-dragon, this is not a great time for you at the moment in the metagame. But I do think that this idea of this character, particularly if it's a Duke, has been kicking around for a while, and we have tried to base our conversations around things that have actually happened at tournaments, and he won. He won.
yeah,
And I think that's what we've got to give him credit to. And now he seems to be copying a lot of flack
yeah.
about it. And yet, navigated that enormous comp list and won anyway. So,
I think it's unfair criticism, to be honest. I mean, comp aside, comp probably helped him win, I think. But like the whole point of tournaments, particularly 2-day tournaments of this scale, is to go and win. If you are going to those tournaments, I think to have casual play, you can still get casual play. It just probably won't be in your first 2
absolutely.
games. And I don't think you should expect it. Like, I don't think it should be expected that people should scale back their lists in these tournaments. 1-day tournaments at your local
Yeah.
game store, I think, is a different conversation. But big GTs of this scale, I think you're allowed to bring what you want, which is within the rules. And he did it, and
And
he
as you
won.
say, look, I think people are anyway. Like the ones
Mm.
we've seen in Australia, there are some conversations culturally about what to do at these tournaments. But when you're looking at what's getting to the top anyway, it's dragons for starters at the big ones recently. And on top of that, I think people are having a great time anyway, it seems,
Yeah,
and you're probably in the middle. I've seen a lot of battle reports from those tournaments in the middle with not many dragons either. So, those people are finding each other at the top. And if you imagine being the person who takes them down, really, because we haven't
yeah,
exhausted the game state, the tools are there. It's just about has anyone been able to do it in reality? And, we've had one game or a couple of games with dragons. I'm taking a dragon next week against someone, and we'll just see how it goes. I think
yeah,
the game's new. We know not much is going to happen probably for another year, but God, it's going gangbusters. Let's just roll with
I
it.
know. Yeah, I think it's easy to get sucked into the to like meta chat online and stuff and be doom and gloomy about it. But I've had fun in every single game I played against,
Yeah,
and I
me
think
too.
my opponents have too. But why don't we try and take something out of this tournament because 2,500 points is not the norm, I would say. But
Mm.
most of our games or all of our games have been 1,500 or 2,000 points, which I'd say 2,000 is probably still the normal. What can be taken out of this list and the fact that this list won to say a 1,500 point, 2,000 point list? What does it say about Bretonnia in that
Mm.
setting?
Yeah, look, I think going through the characters, it's probably hard to justify. You're not going to get a level 4 and the full suite of Paladin plus like the BSB. So you're going to have to probably get two characters at 1,500, the Sydney standard, as I want to call it, which I really like that format. I think you got to have the Virtue of Heroism guy running around and in a unit of pegs. After that, I'm not sure. At 2,000, maybe you get three of those characters. And it would be interesting because I was really surprised with the Exiles rules and how good they are. So that the takeaway to me is Barons are probably a little bit cheaper. How much can you squeeze in an Exiles list rather than just a straight up normal? I probably now look at Exiles a lot more, given that veteran stubborn and the Vanguard thing is great. Like I just didn't even think about that. So they're the takeaways for me. Probably need one
Yeah.
less character. The Vanguard banner is really good. And how far can you stretch Exiles? Like, what does it cost you anything? That's what I have to have a look at more closely.
So the comp on exiles, to my knowledge, is you can't pray for the blessing, but if you
Yeah.
wipe out a unit and overrun and hit another unit, you get the blessing of the lady, or it's some interaction like that. But then you can lose
Hmm.
it in a similar way. And I don't think you can take a level 4 wizard. I could be,
Okay. Yeah, that would
I
make
think,
sense if he has a
yeah,
3 and a 2.
yeah,
Okay.
oh
Because
yeah.
yeah, it's this
I'll double check
funky
that.
thing. Like and you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like he's put together this list in really thoughtful article about what he was trying to do. So yeah, I would say instinctively that's probably right if they had a level 3 and a 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting a bit worried having the knowledge that you and Mike, who features on this podcast a fair bit, are both in the process of building Bretonnia. I think Wood Elves, which I play, cop a lot of flack because of their play style. But I think Bretonnia are going to become a bit of the thorn in most people's sides, I think, because it's going to be so hard to get away from Peg Knights. But
6 months away, Paddy.
6 months, good.
So much
I
painting
can,
to do before
yeah, yeah.
then.
Um, But yeah, I think they're in a pretty good spot. And I would kind of agree that they're near the top, if not at the top, maybe not at the top, but near the top of the current tier list, if you want to call it that.
It's just interesting to know, yeah, why haven't people been able to do well? I think at the GW event, I'd heard there was a lot of Bretonnia there as well. And where the maybe the algorithms aren't surprisingly they're throwing every other Warhammer video at me, but I'm surprised there hasn't been more content from that event. Because it's a power, like the power is acceptable at those events. And so I'm really interested to see what people do. We've got some local Bretonnia players. We're worried about that. There was a guy with the Duke and the Virtue of Heroism at the Western Sydney tournament. Didn't amount to killing a lot on the top tables. So I don't know. Like I'll definitely be putting it together, but to paint it all up, luckily painting a Bretonnian army is one of the biggest pains in the ass going around. So
Yeah.
we'll
You
see.
got to put the effort in. I think it's rewarding if you do, but it seems like a punish for someone who's not, says the guy who's not going to have to paint
Yeah.
22 Knights of the Realm.
I'll get to my individual banner painting soon. Haven't
Yeah.
seen in 5 years. Yeah.
Um,
I'm going for
but
single colors, by the way. I'm just thinking about how I can get away with it and not get dirty looks.
yeah, but I did just double check. Yes, Outcast Wizards can only be upgraded to level 3. So they're a level 1 by
Ah,
in base, and you can go level 2 or level 3. Um,
yeah, to me, that's the theme. Give him the benefit of the doubt that he's put together this list. It was very thoughtful and he tried to win and he won.
yeah.
So good on you. Like we're all trying to win. I haven't won a tournament, so there you go.
Yeah, well, that probably wraps it up for me. Shout out to Abe from Belleville
Yeah,
Souls who put this list together and won the tournament, or at least won best overall. Technically didn't win best general, which I think is the person who won that didn't
I think it
lose a
was a
game.
quirk. He seemed to score because he won all
Yeah,
his, but yeah,
yeah,
he seemed to get the most points too. I think it maybe goes to the next best person or something. I don't know.
yeah. Anyway, congrats to him. Well done, Alex. Thanks as always for your insights. And if you can put off painting in Bretonnia, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll see, Paddy. I might get more excited, get some contrasts, get it done.
I should say, if anyone wants to have their take on this army and whether they think it's fair or broken or busted, let us know. Put it in the comments. I'm easy
Yeah, I'm
either
really
way.
interested in that. What's the best build? Because I
Hmm.
have Gromwell Greathelm on my guy, but that's a Duke. In the way I've sort of bought things to paint. And then underneath that, how do you optimize? This comp has also clouded what is the best way to build the core out and the other units besides the Peg Knights, because while Bretonnian Exiles has some restrictions, that comp list is so convoluted that would Abe have made other decisions in a more regular type of environment that most of us are playing in? So yeah, I'm interested if commenters can put that in, what they've seen from Bretonnia. Everyone seems to be terrified of it, but it just doesn't seem to, they don't seem to be winning a lot of the crystalware at the moment.
Yeah. And Abe, if you're watching, let us know.
Please.
But yeah, thanks, Al. And
Thanks,
yeah,
Paddy.
hit us up with any feedback, guys. Happy to see it coming in.